today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the supplementary admissions process for students with disabilities. Now, you've probably heard a lot about this route, but if we look at, first of all, why would a student apply for this route? The purpose of the supplementary admissions process for students with disabilities is that it is an acknowledgement that for some students the academic impact of their disability or their learning difficulty or their medical condition has been so significant that it's not reasonable to expect them to compete academically with their peers. And if I can just put it really maybe in a way that you can understand, if there's a course that a student wants to do, you want to do, and it's at 450 points. But you have a very significant disability and it's having a significant impact on your ability to represent that knowledge in your Leaving Certificate examinations. We take that fact into account because if you only got 400 points in the Leaving Certificate and the cut-off for the course was 450, we're acknowledging the fact that were it not for that particular issue, you would in fact have gotten 450 points and would be academically capable of doing so. So the whole point of this process is that it is for students who, because of the impact of their disability or specific learning difficulty, may not gain the competitive CAO points for the course of their choice. So now you may ask yourself, well, how can I apply for this? Because I believe that the academic impact of my issue is very significant. The first thing that you have to do is go through the CAO. And when you go through the CAO, you tick the disability or specific learning difficulty box. And then you follow the route which brings you onto the online application form for this system. Be aware that this is a national system and that all of the universities, Dublin Institute of Technology and Athlone Institute of Technology, are part of this process. So by applying through the CAO, you are effectively applying for any of those colleges that are part of the route as you proceed through the CAO process. You must complete the CAO application form online before the 1st of February 2009, and preferably you should continue down the online CAO route and complete all of the information online. If you wish, you can actually indicate that you wish to be considered for the process through the CAO, but you can actually have a hard copy of the application process sent to you by the CAO, rather if you particularly don't want to go through the online route. So the next thing that you're going to ask yourself is, well, what information will I provide through the supplementary information form? Well, you have to provide information of the details of your disability, details of the supports received by you in second level and the likely supports required by you in third level. There are two pieces of documentation that you have to submit as part of your application process. One is the school academic reference, and you can download this directly from the CAO website. You bring it into your school and they will complete that application form for you, and that form really validates the academic impact of your disability or medical issue. You also have to submit supporting documentation, and the supporting documentation in the case of a student who has a learning difficulty is going to be a report from their educational psychologist, and it's really important for you to be aware that that report must be within the last 3 years. In other words, it has to be between the 1st of February 2006 and the 1st of February. All other students have to submit a report from their medical consultant, and as far as the report from the medical consultant is concerned, the more detailed it is, the easier it is for us to decide the appropriate supports for you. So what happens once you have completed this process? Well, the CAO sends on all of those forms to any of the colleges that you have indicated a preference for as part of the CAO process. And all of the applications are then assessed at a national level. So all of the students with a learning difficulty or all of the students with other disabilities or medical conditions, they're assessed at a national level. The huge advantage of this is that it ensures that there's consistency across the sector. It ensures that your application is treated fairly and assessed uniformly. It also means that you don't have to apply for this process individually to different colleges on your CAO form. If you're eligible as part of this process for NUIM Maynooth, you're eligible for every one of the colleges that are participating in this scheme. The converse, of course, also applies. If you're not eligible for one, you're not eligible for any of them. What goes wrong for students who apply through this process? One of the big things that goes wrong is that they don't submit the required documentation or they don't submit it on time. And I find it interesting that in 2007, of the almost 2,500 who disclosed a disability in that year, there was only a rate of return of the forms of less than 75%. And that indicates that lots of students aren't fulfilling the process. Maybe they're not getting in the required documentation. The report could be too old. Maybe it's not from the appropriate specialised consultant. So it's very important that you take responsibility for tracking the progress of your application as it goes through this route. And I would certainly welcome any student who has a particular query about that application to contact me directly, and I can give them some information about that. Now, as regards timescales, just to be aware of particular issues, you go through the CAO form online and you indicate that you have a disability or learning difficulty before the 1st of February. You go ahead and get your consultant's report or your educational psychologist report and send that as quickly as possible into the CAO, but certainly it has to be in before the 27th of March. The other documentation, of course, is the academic reference. In April and June, all applications are actually assessed by the higher education institutions who are participating in the scheme, and you're deemed to be eligible or ineligible. But remember, more than anything else, the important issue is the vast majority of students with disabilities will get a place on the course of their choice by reaching the CAO cut-off points for that course. There's only a small number of students for whom the supplementary admissions process is really important. But regardless of whether you're eligible or not, if you're going to get an offer, you'll get it through the CAO the same as every other student. So the supplementary offer then is made by the HEIs to individual students, and as part of this, they will be made as part of the CAO first and second round offers. You accept your place through the CAO, and then the student contacts the disability office to make an appointment to carry out the needs assessment so they can identify the most appropriate supports for them as early as possible. And that should really be done before the start of the academic year to ensure that those supports are put in place. And remember, whether you get your offer through the supplementary admissions route or you get the CAO points on the course, you can still avail of the supports through the disability office. And as I said in a previous presentation, once you get your offer, the individualised needs assessment is what's next, and then we try to identify the most appropriate supports which focus on educational, technological and personal needs. So where can you get more information? Well, you can get more information from the CAO through their website at www.cao.ie, from individual HEI websites, including obviously NUIM Maynooth's. There's a supplementary admissions route brochure, and we have a connection to that brochure on our website which explains the system in detail. There's a number of better options events, which are events specifically for students with disabilities at which all of the third level institutions are represented. There's one in UCC on the 3rd of December 2008, and then there's one in DIT in Angie Street on the 10th of December 2008, and that's really useful because it focuses specifically on the supports for students with disabilities only, and it means that all the colleges are in the one place. In other words, all of the colleges come to you, and it's a useful place for getting all of that information. So the big issues as regards supplementary process for 2009, you have to disclose the fact that you have a disability, be aware of the fact that there are very comprehensive supports available for you at third level, make sure that you return your SIF application form, all of the documentation that's required, and be aware of the closing date for that, which is the 27th of March 2009. Be aware of the fact that this year for the first time the CAO process goes online, which makes it easier, but it's new, so in some ways that could be seen as more difficult. Be aware of the documentation that's required, and this year the new thing is that the educational psychologist report has to be less than 3 years old. Be aware of the fact that this is a collaborative process, and that just because you apply for this process, it does not mean that you are eligible. The eligibility will be determined at a national level. And also be aware of the fact that a student at NUI Maynooth who gets an offer of a place through the supplementary admissions route is compulsorily required to attend the orientation programme. In other words, the offer of the place is linked to their attendance at orientation. Also be aware of the fact that students who have language exemptions through their leaving certificate must also follow the language exemption route for third level, and that means that for the National University of Ireland colleges you have to go directly to www.nui.ie for further information. There's also some information about language exemptions on our own website. More than anything else, be aware of the fact that the supplementary admissions route can be a very important route for students where the academic impact of their disability or learning difficulty or particular issue has been very significant. But more than anything else, I think that we would say most students come to Maynooth having reached the points for their course. The most important thing to do is to put the supports in place to encourage them and to help them to be an independent learner, and we look forward to seeing you at NUI Maynooth in 2009.